Okay, can I tell you a story?
Always.
I have your attention now, don't I?
Oh, see, I didn't even. Speaking of teases, we teased the
Yes.
toes.
Yeah.
Okay, points on the board for Jillian because no, I did not know that was coming.
Ding, ding, ding. Storytelling is our fourth tip. And this is one that we both wanted to talk about. I love doing that. I love doing that. I do that to so many people. It breaks the ice, it gets you to laugh, it gets you out of your shell. If you can tell a funny story, it gets the crowd laughing, it gets that engagement factor going. And I think the biggest thing for me is it makes you memorable. Justine, you
Mm-hmm.
know this. You
Mm-hmm.
work with senior leaders, you give presentations all the time. There's nothing more dry and boring and not memorable, in my opinion, is if you just stand up there and spew a bunch of statistics or data and it's dry, it's not exciting, and you're not telling the story behind that data, behind why you're talking about this. The story is supposed to go along with the data and the stats and the
Mm-hmm.
facts, but make it memorable and give people something to walk away with.
And sometimes, Jillian, I think people put storytelling maybe in the soft skills camp and they don't prioritize it. It is incredibly effective. If you think about humans, we have been telling stories since we sat around a fire in the caveman days. Our brains remember stories. And so when you tell a story, they remember what you were talking about. They remember probably the high points of your story, or, hey, remember when so and so told us this? And guess what? Then they remember you.
Absolutely. And so let me ask you this. Do you like to start with a story? Do you like to weave stories in? Do you like to finish with a story? Like, how do you feel about that personally?
I think it may depend like on the topic or the presentation. I think it's a great way to start a presentation, to get people
Agree.
hooked, to bring people in. I know I just did a presentation recently, and this sounds really small. And this actually is my point around storytelling, and that sharing a bit of yourself, because then they'll remember
Yep.
you. It
Mhm.
creates trust. It requires some vulnerability, which inherently creates more trust, and it creates that stickiness. So I did a presentation recently, and the only thing I did in introducing myself was saying, I recently got married. I showed a picture from my wedding, and I said, I'm having a really hard time remembering my last name because I just changed it. And these are my flower girls. And nobody tells you as a bride that you don't get to see the flower girls come down the aisle. And now
Oh.
I bet they probably don't remember anything I talked about in that presentation, but they're going to remember, hey, remember she just got married and she had that picture with the cute flower girls. So these are the little things that even if you don't have a ton of time that you could work into storytell.
Absolutely. Stories, going back to my second point here, is they don't have to be long. Keep things concise, keep things descriptive, but they can be so powerful because you're right. That's what people remember you by. And I think stories give the opportunity, it's not always a guarantee, but it gives an opportunity to have a relatability factor with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're working in business and it's sales and the person on the other end of the call or in front of you at the other end of the table might maybe relate to something that you just talked about in a story, or if you're giving a presentation to a whole room full of people, I'm sure whatever story you tell, someone in there, if not more than one person, is going to find some relatability factor. And when you have that relatability to another person, I don't know about you, but it makes me more apt to want to listen to you, to want to hear what you're saying, to pay attention, to ask questions, to be more
Mm-hmm.
engaged in you, because now all of a sudden I have this connection.
It builds trust. And Jillian, we talked a lot about AI. These are the things that AI cannot replace. Yes, they might have a robot telling the scores of a golf outing, or they may be able to synthesize data, et cetera. That personal human touch of being able to storytell, being able to capture the hearts of that audience, that's really hard to replace with AI or any other tool that comes out.
Absolutely. And this is not a tip on our list, but it goes along with storytelling. So it's under this umbrella. But when I go into a conversation or a presentation, I try and think beforehand, how do I want people to feel on the other end of this? And when you can figure out how you want people to feel, then you can figure out the appropriate stories to tell. And I think that's important to think about too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thinking about the audience ahead of time. a small thing. Again, add 10 minutes, 15 minutes before a big meeting or big presentation or even an email to really think about, hey, how do I want the other person on the end of this to receive it? That we don't
Yep.
often make the time for.